Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends, and welcome to today's Kyle Seraphin Show. It is Thursday. It is January the 15th. I appreciate you being along for the ride. I think we're dealing with a pretty awful moment in American history because what we're seeing are radicals who have decided they're not going to wait for the actual riot season. There is a season. It's during the summer when things are nice. People can wear comfortable clothes. They've decided that riot season is going to kick off in the winter. It's a little bit early. It's a little bit ominous for it to be that early on in the Trump administration second year and also in this season. It's kind of crappy outside. A lot of people are going to be in danger from that. It's going to come down to federal agents. And are we going to see folks who are going to try to de-escalate? Are we going to see state politicians do the thing that they ought to do, which is represent for safety and help folks get their minds right? Say, hey, you elected us to do something. You've outsourced violence to the government, and this government is going to go and stand between whatever. No, we're going to see civil war rhetoric come down the line. And it turns out the Trump administration is also complicit in this, and they're doing some really scary stuff. We're going to talk about an ongoing issue of trampling civil liberties, which if it was a problem for you when the Biden administration did it, it should be a problem for you under this one. And we do have some case law that says that if you get some things that are classified from a legitimate source, then you can publish them. This goes back to the Pentagon Papers, 1970s, New York Times versus the United States. One of the scariest precedents that we're going to see under this administration right now is raiding the homes of journalists. I thought that was an issue under the Biden administration, the Obama administration, and we're going to do it again. So, as usual, we find ourselves in the middle looking at both sides and saying, hey, guys, you both kind of suck. We tend to agree with one side a little bit more, but can we just admit that government is an awful solution to all the problems? And sometimes it may be necessary, but we should always keep a close watch on it. That's an ongoing sort of premise of this podcast. And if you want to just be a cheerleader, there's always an audience for it. There's going to be a lot of fun and money for you, but it doesn't mean that you're necessarily operating honestly. And I don't even think you can live that way in your own life. There can be no principles that do that. This is going to be the conflict of 2026. The people that want to cheerlead one side or the other are some people who just want to see things get better for Americans and particularly for their children. So that's where we're going to sit right there with the folks that want to see a better future. And we're the minority. So share the show if you guys don't mind doing so. Let's talk about my friends over at Cove Pure, just the back to basic stuff. When things are screwed up around you, there's a lot of things that you cannot control. One thing you can control is the stuff that goes into your body. You get a choice in that. If you guys want to make sure that you are getting, pure water instead of whatever garbage the government has put in there. If you have a general distrust for the sort of things that come through the faucet, if you don't want PFAs and pharmaceutical residue and fluoride and microplastics and all the other kind of things that my wife was always worried about before I ever thought about it. The thing that changed the game for me was that our water here tasted terrible. I've been in places where water wasn't real tasty. I never had the amount of sulfur and kind of smell that comes out of it. And it's not coming from a well. It's coming from our city. This is just the way the water table works. I made all the phone calls. And so what do you do? You got to filter it. So I ended up pulling the trigger on a drip filter. We have one of those. And then we've got a Cove Pure now for the kids. And it is the easiest thing to use. If you guys are interested in checking them out, it's covepure.com/KYLE. Right now, you're going to save $200 on their normal pricing, which is not such a bad deal. The upside to this is that it takes absolutely no plumbing. You don't have to do this complicated setup. And if you've ever done one of the drip filters, which I did, it's constantly wondering like, hey, did I get it right? Is the seal correct? How am I gonna have to drop water in here to make sure that it all works? Which is what you do. You put water in, then you put a bunch of like red dye in. You make sure it gets out there. Then you got red dye sitting in your filter for the rest of the time that you have it. Cove Pure is super easy. You literally plug it in, you fill it up with water, and you push a couple of buttons and walk away and push a button when it tells you to push it again. And you do that about 3 times, and about 15 minutes later, after a couple of hums and whirs and buzzes, like it's all over. And then you just push the button, you get instantly hot water if you want to make like a ramen soup, or if you want to make tea or instant coffee, something like that. You can get cold water if you like it chilled, and you can get lukewarm water. And then it still has the pitcher you can pull out and use it for bulk if you're going to do something else with it. So for cooking and so on. Check out my friends at Cove Pure. It's super easy. Having the size presets is great if you've got kids. Again, not having to worry about whether or not you're doing a proper setup or any plumbing. Great for renters, great for people that are just smaller families that might be moving around and so on. You know, it's a weird time, weird economy. This may be the thing for you. So check them out, covepure.com/KYLE. Again, covepure.com/KYLE. There's a link in the show descriptions. It's about as fundamental as it gets, just drinking water. It's also like really good military medicine. Emergency medicine in the military is almost always take a knee, maybe get some ibuprofen, hydrate, have a little pity party for yourself and move on. So check out Cove Pure. All right, here we go. Let's get into today's show. All right, folks, I'm going to start with the supposition that the cheerleaders are part of the problem. And broadly speaking, it is always the premise of this program that government is the worst solution to every single problem, including when it is, in fact, the only solution, which is to say, I would contest that government at every level is a necessary evil, but it's nothing we should be cheering on and celebrating. And so for the people that get behind it and go like, yeah, this is my government, I love it, I love I don't know anybody that says that. But if you do, you're going to have a hard time with this program. I want to go to the fact that comedians seem to be the place where more and more people are getting news, they're getting information, and why it's because they're being irreverent. They're not worshiping any idols. And comedy, at least when I grew up, was a way of people sort of saying difficult things that would otherwise, not be acceptable in polite society, but because it's funny and because of the jarring nature of it, they get away with saying things that are more aggressive than maybe you could have a conversation with other people. And if you can get a laugh out of somebody, then you can open their mind up just a little bit. So I keep seeing comedians be the source of it. Doesn't matter whether it's Daily Show, which happened, a decade ago, that was a big deal, or maybe a decade and a half ago. People in my generation were watching that and going, yes, I need to laugh while I also am sobbing about the destruction of our republic. You see that Joe Rogan, comedian, biggest podcast in the world. He's opening people's minds with comedy, humor, irreverence, etc. You've got guys like Tim Dillon that are doing it, and there's a guy named Bobby Sauce who has a much smaller audience, but I think he continues to kind of represent what I would call the bacon cheeseburger nationalist position, which is just regular people who see things not in this is my team, this is not my team, whatever these people say goes for me, I want to outsource my opinion. And regular critical thinkers go, there are some things that are good, there are some things that are bad. I have friends that I agree with on certain things. I know there's certain topics that we're not going to agree on. It would be relevant for us to just be able to have that space. And the interesting moment that we're experiencing right now is I think that our Trump administration, I'll say our because it's the American federal government's administration, they're trying to do battle with people that are micro dissidents, not people who disagree with them in principle or in theory, but in their actual carrying out and their factual sort of handling of business. Let me give you a great little example here. This is just a quick story, and then I'm going to give a video cut of Bobby Sauce kind of breaking down how you become an enemy of certain people. This story came from Catholic Vote. This was a lead story in the Loop this morning, and it actually kind of threw me for a loop for all things. It says the Trump administration health department has quietly restored Planned Parenthood funding, and they did so last month. This is that micro betrayal. This is where you become a micro dissident, where you say, broadly speaking, I think your agenda works for me. It's what I voted for. This whole idea. I voted for my friend not to go to prison. That was pretty transactional. Some of you voted for J6ers. Some of you you thought you were voting pro-life. Some of you voted because you wanted smaller or limited government. Some of you voted for the Maha agenda, which is really amusing to me because everything I heard about RFK Jr., even though I don't dislike a lot of the messaging on a very, very particular narrow topic, he still comes at this from like a real communist perspective, a hard left possession, because these guys are all Democrats and they just sort of like have dressed up in certain types of Republican clothing, but they're not conservatives. RFK Jr. thinks that he should be able to mandate and government was going to make sure that every American could have healthy meals. If you listen to the words he said, you're like, what the hell? That sounds like communist agendas. And so sometimes they let these masks slip. And that prior Democrat background, the fact that Donald Trump spent his whole life as a Democrat. And I wouldn't say that he joined the Republican Party or he joined the political right. I would say that the left left him to the point where he was just on the right of wherever that center point was that moved. And I think it's more fair than not to say that those things sometimes pop up, and this sort of like amelioration moment pops up where, oh, yeah, we're going to give money back to the thing that you thought was the arch enemy, killing babies, like just an objective evil. Yeah, here it is. Trump administration, Department of Health and Human Services, that's going to be under RFK Jr., quietly released. They have it in air quotes here, but I think that's accurate because most of you probably didn't know this, and it happened over a month ago. They quietly released tens of millions of dollars that were previously frozen in Title X family planning funds to Planned Parenthood affiliates and other abortion facilities. And this was reported day before yesterday by Politico. Catholic Vote previously reported the Trump administration in April of 2025 froze roughly $27.5 million in federal family planning grants. Federal family planning, that's a thing. That's terrifying, actually, on every level. To certain organizations, to include Planned Parenthood, while it reviewed whether or not the recipients had used taxpayer funds to support diversity, equity, and inclusion. So isn't it interesting? It wasn't even about the abortion part of it, was it? When you get down to the meat of the story, you find out that the actual issue that they had was this sort of a question of whether or not it was DEI funding, which is a political fight. It's not a moral fight. According to Politico, the funds were released and restored in December of 2025, prompting the ACLU to drop a lawsuit which have compelled them to release these funds. The case was brought by ACLU on behalf of the National Family Planning and Reproductive Health Association. What a hell of a euphemism for killing babies. Family planning and reproductive health. They always use these words, right? They argued the grants were illegally withheld. The suit was voluntarily dismissed 3 days ago. In a December 19th court document cited by Politico, United States Attorney Jeanine Pirro for the District of Columbia said the agency's review of potential DEI-related spending violation was complete, and so all grants at issue for the plaintiff's members have been restored. That's hero of the Republic, former Fox, Jeanine Pirro, Judge Jeanine. And it's always interesting when you kind of look at there and you go, oh, well, that's my person. People constantly tell me that they had somebody that they believed in and they were let down. Why would you believe in that person? You don't know them. These parasocial relationships that lead you to be a cheerleader are really problematic. And they constantly are going to do things that are really troubling like this. And again, even the motivation for this was not, in fact, to get rid of funding to abortion, which is what all of us think. Planned Parenthood, abortion, federal funds, abortion, shouldn't be doing that. No. It was about whether or not they were using DEI initiatives and whether they're promoting people based on things that are maybe violations of federal law under the civil rights codes. These people don't represent you in the way you think they do. So being a cheerleader is not going to help you out. And being mad at people that call out things accurately and say, listen, these politicians are going to get some results that are favorable and some that are not. My biggest concern right now is that the Trump administration is trying to label things domestic terrorism when in fact a lot of it is actually protected speech. And I would want you to be able to go out there and be a dissident in the street if you were so inclined, although most of us have jobs and don't have time for that crap. But I would want you to be able to go out and protest. I would want you to be able to have your voice heard and raised. That's reasonable. That doesn't make you a terrorist just because you disagree with the ideological instincts of the administration, whoever is in power. Domestic terrorism has a meaning. It's pretty vague, but it requires three things. I'm actually going to reference them for you right now because when you're hearing Antifa, which may or may not, actually, depending on the cell, depending on the people, it may or may not actually be able to fit the actual definition of domestic terrorism. It's relevant that when we talk about these things, there are three pieces to a triangle that are oftentimes just being ignored. You hear domestic terrorism, you have some idea what it means. Person I don't like that does something that I don't like in America. Terrorist. It's violent. I don't like it. That's not it, okay? There are three pieces to it, and I'm going to cover them. We've actually covered this before with William Taylor, who is an FBI whistleblower and was on this program. He's retired now, but heard from Bill Taylor a little bit. I hope he's doing okay. There are three parts to the domestic terrorism, what we call triangle, when you're actually working on this stuff. So let me give you real factual information, and then when you hear it, evaluate what the administration is saying, and is it just hyperbolic speech that gets out of hand? Is it Civil War rhetoric like you're hearing Tim Walz and the mayor of Somalia saying right now, or is it legitimately justified? And would you, under a different administration, fall under the category of domestic terrorism equaling just things we don't like? Number one, there has to be an articulable, factual basis outlining how the person that is being arrested or the person that is being investigated is involved in force or violence. It has to be a federal violation of law, not a state law. And then lastly, that violence has to be performed in order to accomplish a social or political objective. So those are the three pieces, and that doesn't even make it necessarily criminal until you get to the violation of federal law. So if you want a criminal domestic terrorism investigation, it's very specific, and there's a reason why you'll almost never see them charged. Articulable, factual basis saying the subject did something using force, fraud, or violence. It has to actually be a violation of federal law in that space, and then it has to be used to further a political agenda. They can be an Antifa member who does some local crime or gets involved in some sort of local violence, and it's not necessarily domestic terrorism. Running over an ICE agent on accident, turns out it can't be domestic terrorism. You'd have to actually prove that that person was intentionally involved and that it was trying to further their ideology or agenda. Troubling, frustrating. It's not cut and dry. The world is not like that. All right. This is Bobby Sauce. As I said, it's sad when comedians have to be the people that are the voice of reason. This guy kind of represents a lot of the feelings, I think, of this audience. So I hope you guys sort of resonate with what he's saying. You're going to be disliked by people who are wearing the red hat no matter what, as my buddy Steve Friend refers to them, people who would crawl over broken glass to vote for Donald Trump a third time. And then there's the group of people that say, I just want the government to answer to the thing that it promised it would do. I want accountability for these things. So here's Bobby saying that.
If you're critical of something that the administration does, but you built your audience of primarily right-wing and or MAGA people, you always get the same response. It's always, oh, why do you not like President Trump? Or what do you think Kamala Harris would have been better? But here's what they're missing. It's important to be critical of the admin, especially if it's one that you support, because that's the only way that things get done. Remember, they were asking for your vote because criticism amplified becomes pressure, and pressure creates change. Now, this becomes especially important when it comes to matters that you understand fully. Like if you see them lie and or cover up and or hide behind something that you know obviously isn't that thing, you have to call that out. Because if you can't trust someone to tell you the truth about something that you understand thoroughly, that seems obvious, how can you trust them to tell you the truth about something that's much more complex that you might not understand the full picture of? A lot of the real OG conspiracy heads knew about Poopstein even before he got arrested. So if you watched that and all of these come to a pass and the reaction subsequently thereafter, you're like, wait, well, why are they doing that? And it makes you start to question other moves that are being made about complex situations that you may not have the full picture of, like perhaps an impending attack in another place or a potential war or whatever else. It's the same way you evaluate a person. If you would lie to me about this, why wouldn't you lie to me about that? This is why it has become increasingly crucial to call out and or ask for clarity on matters of small importance, just like things of large importance. Because it's just like a friend or an employee at work or an acquaintance or whatever. If you let them get away with small things, they'll start to get away with bigger things. To question and criticize the administration that you encourage people to vote for, that you voted for, is important. That's the difference between the hive mind groupthink of the left that we've all learned to despise and the independent, rugged individualism of the right. Don't we remember?
Yeah, don't we remember that that's what's supposed to happen? You're supposed to think for yourself. I encourage everybody in this audience to think for yourself. I really do. I don't think you should just take Kyle Seraphin's opinion and say, oh, well, it must be, that's it. You know, my guy that said bacon cheeseburger nationalism, that represents everything I think about too. It shouldn't. We all have a lot of questions. We all make decisions based on different reasons. And so evaluate what the person is saying, decide whether or not it holds true for what you know to be true. And then more importantly, evaluate them in a biblical context, which, you know, he just said it. He just didn't call it biblical. This is the reason why I think bacon cheeseburger nationalism as an idea is very effective. What it says is, if you're the person that sits next to me and is willing to eat that burger, and you generally speaking hold, I'll call them, I don't know, vintage or heritage American sort of beliefs about other people, about your own sense of freedom and what is not tolerable in this country, it doesn't have to necessarily have a Christian branding on the outside of it. How many people have you met that live as the best Christians you've ever seen? And they don't go to church, and they are not necessarily explicitly telling you that the things they're doing are because of a focus on a New Testament biblical belief. And yet they live all those principles. They live by the golden rule. They do, in fact, treat others as they would like to be treated. They do love their neighbor. They do go out of their way and act as a good Samaritan. You know, they do, in fact, act humbly and so on. There's a lot of people that are like that. And you meet them and you're like, that's an inherently good person. Whether or not they have the same exact faith in name, they are living the same exact faith. And maybe they'll be able to come to my church one day or not, but I know them by the fruits of what they are, which is what Bobby was just talking about. Then there's people that are really performative. And this is my problem that I'm seeing right now. A lot of performative nonsense. I can't help but say that I don't know everything about vaccines or about medical questions. I know more than many. I went to schooling for a fair amount of it. I did, I was a paramedic. I worked in an emergency room. I worked around a lot of physicians. I've got friends who are physicians. I know that I've been smarter than many of the doctors that I had. Intellectually, I have a higher horsepower rating than the person that is able to prescribe me medicine and is educated and able to, talk about these things. And sometimes they can't even answer my questions, which are important to me. So I don't conflate things like intelligence and education, but I do know that experience and education comes into play in certain places. I'm watching this NBC story fold out right now, and they seem really incredulous that vaccine exemptions for religious or personal beliefs are rising across the United States. Yes, of course they are, because people learn to question authority a little bit. The institutions that used to have outsourced blind faith. This is the legacy of the COVID era. People who previously would say, there's no way my government wants bad things to happen to me. That's not right. There's good people there and they're doing the best they can do and they're making the best recommendations for me. And then you start realizing like, wait a minute, okay, well, there's an awful lot of money and incentive and a lot of like going along to get along. And were they just sort of covering these things up? Did they actually have an agenda? Holy crap, like human beings had a human agenda and they're not just mindless automatons acting in the best interests like some sort of like communist fantasy? Oh, yeah, I do have some questions and I might want an exemption. Of course that's going to rise right now. They're noting that since the pandemic, more than half the counties in the United States have reported increase in kindergartners opting out of vaccinations for non-medical reasons. Of course they have. Because there's less blind obedience, which means that our little clan of people in the middle, right of center, interested in treating people the way that I have seen people treated historically in America, but not blindly just following some political party. Actually, we're probably like far right of the GOP, if you fit into my category. And they're like they're softies and squishies. They have Lindsey Grahams. I don't have that. Not in my world. I want to say something that I had a funny conversation yesterday with the New York Times and a New York Times reporter. And I guess they're doing a story about something and I'm peripherally mentioned. So they wanted to ask me a question about it. We'll go back to the vaccines in a second because there's a question about Fauci and how about accountability for this administration? Some of the promises that were meant and people that actually thought things were going to happen because of what HHS was doing. We didn't think they were going to give money back to Planned Parenthood. We thought they were going to go after Anthony Fauci and correct some of the injustice that happened. I had this New York Times reporter had an interview with me. She had some facts wrong. It was fine. It was nothing significant. They wanted to know my questions about, they had questions about tweets and stuff I had. I said, look, whatever I said is what I said. You can quote me directly. You don't have to imply anything from it, or you can imply anything you want, but just use my words if you're quoting me on that. And the context of it was that I have an ideological problem with politically appointed princes getting access to private jets. And by the way, so did Kash Patel prior to him getting into the administration. So that was kind of like the gist of why they were asking me questions in the first place. And then they reached back out to me. I should almost pull it up because it's actually funny to read. I'll do it maybe tomorrow with Steve Friend. I got an email and they said, you described yourself as first of all, they wanted to call me a MAGA-aligned podcaster. I think that falls into what Bobby was just talking about. I'm not a MAGA-aligned podcaster, but many of you people would put MAGA on. Maybe some of you own the red hat, and that's fine. We generally are going to agree with a lot of things, right? We will. And the audience that came to this show were interested in the MAGA agenda, but not the MAGA TM part of it, not the America First TM, whatever bullshit we sell you is what you have to eat. You have to, consume our slop. I think the audience here looked around and said, okay, I agree with the principles that these things are about. But if you were to walk away from the actual reasons why we think America should be great, if you didn't believe that make America great again meant make America constitutional again, make American of Christian values again, then yeah, we're probably not going to stick around for that. You were the thinkers. That seems fair. So they asked me, are you a MAGA aligned podcaster? And I was like, no. And they say, okay. I said, I'm a conservative. podcaster. I'm a Catholic. I'm a father. I'm a military veteran. I'm a former law enforcement professional. I was a paramedic. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. Those are my things. Like, so whatever that guy is, whatever the regular guy is that has babies, is responsible for a series of other lives, including a wife, that worked in public safety, worked in federal investigations, worked in public health and emergency medicine, and then also thought it was necessary to serve the nation in some way in a capability that involves violence. And I go to church on Sunday at a Catholic mass. That's what I am. So, and they were like, okay, can we call you right wing? They wanted to call me right wing or far right. I said, I don't know what those words mean. And maybe you guys do. You know, like, obviously it's an attempt to sort of like smear you and discredit you. And I want to have this funny conversation that at some point, maybe I can get somebody from the New York Times to come and talk to me about it live. What does it mean when the left media, you know, even if they're reasonable leftists or reasonable liberals, and they go by this moniker, what does far right mean to you? Does that mean you think I'm a Nazi? Do you think that I'm some sort of a fascist? I don't know what those words mean, and I'm not sure you do. And I'm far right if the New York Times is a radical leftist organization. And they might be. And so maybe I am far right to them. But I just don't know what it conveys to your audience. And then, like, why wouldn't you just put the word conservative? Why are we arguing over that term? It's really important that these words have meanings, and you can tell that. You can tell the words have meanings. You can tell that people are using them intentionally. And I'm watching it happen right now, where there's some real wacky stuff happening on the political right. There's some really, really aggressive statements, sovereign citizen, anarchist, full communism, and also like revolutionary type talk happening on the left. It's the same exact environment we saw in 2020. After years of hype, the first Trump administration, by 2020, when they had the George Floyd riots, they were so primed to just give me some reason to lose my shit and not be reasonable. And then people did it. And if I can find a bunch of other dummies, then, you know, the movement starts going. And we're seeing that happen, riot season happening in the freezing cold. It's not easy to stand out and get super heated and aggressive. I've seen the riot season of Washington, D.C. in 2020 during the summer. And who came out? Lots of people. There were pretty girls wearing like scantily, you know, little minimal clothing, and guys that wanted to be around that. So they're out there for that. And if that's what the politics involved, then I'm willing to say the chant and all the other kind of stuff they did. What you don't see is super riled up people when it's shitty weather. I'll just tell you that. The State of the Union is done in January and February, whatever the time it is. I went to, I think, 4 of them. And I don't care how much you hated Donald Trump, you're going to get a much smaller turnout crowd. We always had way, way smaller turnout of the protesters and the people that wanted to start trouble. It's just way easier to deal with a small crowd, and the small crowds always happen when it's cold. We're starting to see more and more big crowds and more dedicated crowds, not the like summer, you know, beautiful fall weather in Portland kind of thing that I saw. No, like, it sucks outside in Minnesota, and like, watch out for slippery ice and things like that. And you're seeing these people get really riled up about it. So they're getting the fuel is being poured onto that fire, the whatever it is, the dial's getting turned up. And the difference is we're not seeing like real action or progress happening on the right. We're seeing a hope that you and me don't pay attention to the fact that we've still got some questions about vaccines, that we still have some questions about accountability, that we didn't see sort of like, you know, deep state arrests that were being promised. They want you to be excited because they're going to stop these quote unquote domestic terrorists while still doing minimal deportations compared to what needs to be done to actually achieve any of the goals we want. We'll run through this vaccine exemption thing. It's hard to watch it because, again, I wanted to see success in this field. This is letting us know that the majority of counties are now seeing a steady rise in vaccine exemptions for religious or personal beliefs. How many of you guys have not gone to a doctor or have resisted going to a doctor simply because of these questions? You don't want, I mean, I'm dealing with a situation right now in our house where I'm not real crazy about going to a doctor or a dentist because I don't want to have to explain myself to some random person who has absolutely no right to tell me how to handle my children and my business. And by the way, if you hold that belief, then you should actually believe that the leftists have the ability to raise their kids in whatever social justice oriented schools they want. It's a hard thing to be actually accountable to your own principles. I had a question the other day about this woman who was, where was she? She's this Renee Good lady, right? And apparently she went to a social justice school with her kid. as a parent with custody, I believe that's her right. Even if I think it's dumb, I think it's bad for the kid. I think it's bad for her. I think it's bad for society. But I also think that that's really important, that she has the ability to raise her child the way that she thinks is fit. I don't want to pull kids from parents. She's not physically endangering him, even if I think she's raising him wrong. So we're seeing this moment where we're not getting that accountability. And it's problematic. And here's what I thought we were getting, because this goes back to that, like, we didn't correct the wrongs from back then. Fauci got a pardon. He's good to go. We didn't see anybody solve this issue. And we're not even seeing them even address it head on in a meaningful way. Because again, they went after Planned Parenthood funding, but what'd they do it for? DEI. And so they did it for a soft reason, not the reason that we thought. Again, this leads to this not being a cheerleader, allows you to look at things a little bit more clearly. If you pick a team, then I guess you just put on the jersey and you get totally excited about it. Here's somebody who doesn't put on the team, and this gets you attacked in 2026 as a legit conservative who votes the way that almost all of us would want. I think the Rand Pauls, the Tom Masseys, you find yourself being called a loser and attacked by the administration, instead of them attacking the real problems, which are like the really dangerous people, stirring up the violence.
Well, one thing we do know is that when Biden left office, he was granted this very bizarre pardon where he got a pardon that goes back to 2014 for crimes he was never accused of, never convicted. I mean, it's got to be one of the first times that anybody's ever been pardoned.
Yeah, and I think it should be challenged. And so we have, under the Biden administration, I sent criminal referrals for Anthony Fauci to Merrick Garland twice, and I sent them evidence that he had lied to Congress, which was a felony. They just ignored me. I've been working with Bobby Kennedy, and he's been very helpful on this. I have a good relationship with him. He's given us a lot of information, and we've looked at the communications. And in Anthony Fauci's communications, we now have evidence that he was telling people like Francis Collins, read this and destroy it. Well, you can't do that. The executive branch, when they communicate, they're required to keep their communications, and they're required to do it on government devices. So we have this evidence, and I've summarized it again in a criminal referral to Trump's attorney general, and I still haven't gotten action. But there's a couple reasons we should do it. One, he shouldn't get away with lying. He shouldn't get away with destroying records. But two, we should check the pardon. Is an auto pen pardon valid? And is a pardon a retrospective pardon back 10 years that doesn't mention a crime? Can you give people a pardon for everything they did in a 10-year period? I can't imagine, and I think the court might narrow that. But it doesn't happen unless the Trump Justice Department will do something. And I've been sending them referrals, and I can't get them to do anything. I can't guarantee they'll win. They might lose, but they ought to go to court. Take it to court.
Isn't it interesting that there are actually a couple of different duties that are required of each of our branches of government? And if they actually did those things, then we'd be in a great spot. You hear a lot of times that the executive is out there lobbying for legislation. They want to tell the legislator what to do. And the legislators want to tell the executive, hey, these are some people to look into. And if they actually did the things that they were meant to do, then we would be in a much more functional place. But it's way better to fake it. It's way better to get people outraged and pretend that you have authorities that you don't. It's way better to get the people distracted, WWE style. Then you never have to be held accountable for the actual sort of things in your job description. I had this standing belief that getting an award for something in your job description, which the federal government does all the time, including I got them, they were things that I was required to do. They were written into the description of the job. They were my actual duties. And if I did my actual duties well, you were going to reward me. That's the minimum standard. It's not like these people are getting their job done. They're passing budgets. They are balancing the U.S. Sort of currency in and out situation, that they've got the accounts receivable and the accounts payable lined up, and that they are functioning as a real, corporate entity. No, they're not. They're not doing that. Like, go get single issue appropriations bills. You don't have time for this cosplay crap. Yesterday, we had an entire hearing by 4 people who had nothing to do with the thing that the hearing was about. And we had another one that was whether or not men are men and women are women. I shit you not right now. In 2026 America, our Congress, rather than doing their job and they're going to come up to another continuing resolution, or they're going to have to make some sort of big deal about, we don't know how to pass the budget because we're still operating under a CR right now. Our government is on a contingency basis being funded. They're not doing their fundamental job, and they have time to have a hearing about the pipe bomber case that is actually active right now and being litigated in the court system. So their witnesses were a guy who worked in the FBI during the time of the pipe bomber case, but was nowhere near it, never worked on it, didn't read anything about it, and actually was busy assigning surveillance to January 6 subjects, even though he called about January 6 being so political. That's my former boss, John Nance. I got a little bit of knowledge about that guy. Dan Bongino used to have a little bit of knowledge about that guy. I thought he was a piece of garbage. Called him a wolf in the tent. Then you had another guy, Chris Pihota, who was sitting at the table, and I watched this whole hearing, and I went like, God, I'm not even going to play you any of the clips. They were utterly a waste of time. There was one little piece I'll play you, which are the questions that people should be asking. Another guy who retired before the pipe bomber case even took place. He was the number 4 in the FBI, didn't have the balls to make any changes, didn't have the balls to resist the Chris Wray, the Paula Bates, the people that were there under the Biden administration. So he walked out. So he was useless and had nothing to say. And then a guy who had absolutely nothing to do with anything, as far as I can tell. I was like, why is this guy even there? What made this person show up? This is Thomas Speciale, and he apparently ran for office. He wanted to be a senator out of Virginia, and he was some DHS or intel official and worked in the military. And I was like, why is that guy even on the thing? Why is he there representing the pro-government, Kash Patel's a great guy position? And then I had an FBI whistleblower reach out to me, previous whistleblower for previous stuff. The person on the top right hand of the screen, sitting behind him, that's his wife with the red hair, sitting next to Ivan Raiklin. By the way, Ivan Raiklin holding a sign up that says Shawnee Kirkhoff. That's pretty funny. Ivan Raiklin always trolling properly, I guess. Stirring the pot, right? But that woman that's sitting right next to Ivan, behind the man who's testifying, there's her picture. She's an FBI employee. Apparently she was a contractor, and this dude was at January 6th and nothing bad happened to him. And nothing bad happened to her, and she still works for the government because she didn't fight any of the COVID stuff. And so all the stuff ends up coming back to the same thing for me. It's like, how deep do these damn rabbit holes go? Why do they all come back to it? And then when we have no accountability, our Justice Department's not doing the thing that we thought they would be doing. Congress is not doing the thing that they are required to do. We were told very explicitly, 2023, Mike Johnson, they vacated the chair. They put a new guy in. The Speaker of the House told us, promised us one thing that would have actually made a difference for the quote unquote MAGA agenda, for people who are actually conservative. Will you please just fund our government one line item at a time, one department at a time? Will you say what the money is for and do your freaking jobs? No, they don't want to do that. And so our executive is avoiding their authorities. Congress is avoiding their authorities. And then we end up with this. Donald Trump talking about how the federal government has a job to what? Make things more affordable for you? Honestly, under what circumstances did the federal government get to come in and delineate what prices are, unless you want to be a communist? Do you really want central planning? Because they keep talking central planning. It's almost like the people that were 90s Democrats are still freaking Democrats, and their solutions are all still government-based. There is no conservative bacon cheeseburger national representative. And the ones that are close, they get attacked. Rand Paul is probably as close as it's going to get. Tom Massey probably as close as it gets to what I think should be done in government. Like less of it. Default position. Eliminate. But if you say those things, then you get screwed. You get screwed with on the national election scene. And so here's Donald Trump talking about affordability, and then Rand Paul's a loser. He's got a great analogy, by the way. He goes right to WWE. It's almost like he listens here.
And yesterday he ramped up his Rand Paul rhetoric, calling you a stone-cold loser. Let's take a listen to this.
Affordability. Now, that's a word used by the Democrats. They're the ones that caused the problem. The one thing, they stick together. They don't have some of the people that we have. They don't have a Rand Paul that votes against everything. I got him elected twice. He was stone-cold loser. Then he votes against all the time. It's just crazy. I don't get it.
It's crazy, and you're a stone-cold loser who, without him, wouldn't even be a senator, Rand Paul. Your response?
You know what I was reminded of? Trump was at one time a worldwide wrestler. He was on the WWE. He's actually in the Hall of Fame. And one of his interactions is with Stone Cold Steve Austin. And Stone Cold Steve Austin was famous for his Stone Cold Stunner move, where he kicks you in the stomach and then knocks you down. And so there's actually an episode where Trump is in the ring and he's kicked hard in the stomach and pummeled to the ground. And I guess he's got this stone cold stunner thing that's happened to him. And maybe he's confused and thinks I'm Steve Austin. But this is not worldwide wrestling. And, look, we're mature people. There are many things I support the president on. But, I promise to defend the Constitution. The debate over war powers is bigger than Donald Trump. It's bigger than me, and it's been going on for, my entire lifetime. So I've informed the president it's not personal. Look, I voted for 91% of his legislation. I voted for nearly 100% of his nominees. I've been one of his biggest defenders when he was impeached twice. If he can't appreciate that, that's too bad. But at the same time, I haven't given up supporting the president. I support him on many things. I actually like him personally. I enjoy his time. I've known him for...
He goes on to say, I played golf with him a bunch of times. Here's a real problem. Look at this. NBC News actually has a story on it. Good for them. Good job, NBC News. They're talking about 24 members of Congress are 80 years or older. They're 80 years old or older. People at 80 oftentimes need to be evaluated on whether or not they should be driving a car. And these are the people that are deciding like how much money we're going to spend and, how the United States is going to continue and the most serious and important powers that were delineated underneath the Constitution. Theoretically, term limits don't matter. I see you guys in the chat talking about it. Yeah, we need term limits. Okay, fine. How about stop voting for people that are over 75 years old? How about stop voting for people that are over 65? That's kind of where I'm sitting. I'm not trying to be mean, but I get requests every single day. You guys may not understand this, but like when you have any podcast, and we don't even have, we're not huge by any means. I do think we punch above weight, but I get people hitting me up to have their candidate come on all the time. Would you interview this person? Would you have them on? Well, what you're asking me to do is, will I endorse your candidate? And I just look at them. If you're over 65, the answer is no. I don't care who you are. You may share all of my best ideas. You may have all of those things, but you're too old. I don't want you in. I want people that are in their, let's call it 40 to 60 year age range. And if you're in your 60s, I hope that if you're in your at 60, I hope that you're prepared to leave in a couple of years. You're not going to stick around. You're going to retire like a normal person. 65, 68, that'd be okay. Go do 2-3 terms in Congress and then roll. Fine. You'll get me to back you on that. I'm okay with it. I want people with enough life experience, but also enough youth to be able to be bold. How bold are these people? Freaking Nancy Pelosi. I mean, other than they are boldly stealing from us and some of the wild stuff they do. This is crazy. She's 85 years old, Nancy Pelosi. She's been there for 40 years. She's been in Congress for as long as I've been alive, basically. You got Steny Hoyer, 86. Mitch McConnell, 83, who's basically walking around, and we've seen him, he tards out on a regular basis and needs to be rebooted like an old laptop that's run out of memory. There are 24 members of the silent generation now serving in the 119th Congress. I mean, forget boomers. I'm talking about people that are they're ancient at this point. You got the Chuck Grassley types, and people cheer him on. They would vote for Chuck Grassley again today, the people that are not paying attention. It's like, go home and enjoy your great-grandchildren, you assholes. Seriously, what are you doing? You got a handful of them that are not seeking re-election, but a bunch of them are. And so anyway, there's some graphs here that shows you. I'll post this in the comments. You guys can read it yourself a little bit more. It's really problematic to me. People that are just operating under old systems that don't even make sense anymore. I mean, somebody told us that I was listening. Gerontocracy is ruled by the oldest, but we're getting close to necrocracy, ruled by the dead, people that are functionally dead. There are people that we know that have been put in nursing homes and their aides are out there making all their decisions. Yikes. That's not representation. That person can't go out and find out what their constituents are all about. They can't make rational decisions. I think there's a value in having an understanding of the analog age, and that you didn't just grow up in a digital age. I also don't want any of these Gen Zers to be in office at all. Gen X, millennials, that's what the power structure should be right now. And it's not. And yeah, maybe my generation is to blame too, because a lot of us don't want to step into that. It looks awful and stupid. I've talked to members of Congress, and the answer is why would I go waste my time in something so stupid as what you guys do there? None of you guys are able to get anything done. None of you are going to do anything that's consensus-based, and you surrendered your powers before you were even in office. Except some of these people in their 80s, they actually were there when the powers were surrendered. They're actually to blame for this stuff. It's actually incredible. In any case, it bugs me. It bugs me to see that this entrenched system, it's not going anywhere. You know, it's just not. And that's not doomsaying. To tell me that to tell me that to recognize the reality that our system is broken and that it's probably not going to get fixed this way, and maybe these Dems are correct with their revolutionary type attitudes. I don't think that their solution is correct, but I think they may be correct that it's not going to get fixed. I'm kind of amused to see what happens next if they just get like, okay, what happens? You guys are turning into sovereign citizens. The Black Panthers are coming back. I got some videos of that too. Play that in a second here. While we're just kind of rambling on it, how about this? Give us a boost over on Rumble. Give us a boost on YouTube. Share this with somebody who has a rational point of view, may or may not agree with everything. That's my favorite comment, by the way. I get it from you guys all the time. I see it on YouTube. I see it on Spotify, KyleSeraphinShow.com if you want to get a cheat code to get that. I see it on the regular. It's so obvious to me that people know I don't agree with everything you say, but I like how you say some of the things you say. Thank you. That's a huge compliment. Yeah, I don't agree with everything you say either. I don't know you. You don't know me. Not personally. Like, you know what I'm sharing with you. And so just because we don't agree on everything, it doesn't mean it gets thrown out. It just means, oh, interesting. I agree with a lot of what you say. I don't agree with this. Here's the reasons why. Or I haven't thought about that fully enough. Maybe I'll agree with you later. This is how it works with people who are actually your real friends. I got a buddy 91% of the time, Rand Paul, right? Well, when we find that 9%, when we find that 7% we don't agree on, that's actually where things really happen. It's nice to have somebody who agrees with you and be in an echo chamber. That's great. It's really nice to find out, like, oh, what are the things that we clash on? And what are the reasons? Are there ideological differences that we have? Okay. That's okay. It's normal. Here's Tom Massey from the other day. The guy who did this hit job or wannabe ambush interview has been DMing me, and I don't know if he's just retarded or what's wrong with him, but he's very young, and I don't know how young, but he's quite a bit younger than me, and he's demanding that I send him text messages that I've shared with my friends. So those people don't need to be in charge either. But listen to what he said. Same exact percentage that Rand Paul said, 91%. Well, what are the things that are not being voted with the president's agenda and so on? Here it is.
How's it going? Happy birthday. Thank you.
Wait, so Congressman, in the last 2 weeks, you repeated AOC's talking points on Venezuela, and Jasmine Crockett has retweeted you. When will you change your party affiliation to Democrat?
I thought you knew. I vote with Republicans 91% of the time. And the 9% I don't, they're taken up for pedophiles, starting another war, or bankrupting our country.
I don't know about that, Congressman. We'll see.
Are we going to impeach Pat Monty for not releasing?
Yeah, okay, Laura Loomer, you got him. It's the dumbest thing ever. Like, that actually ends up being a campaign ad for Tom Massey. He's like, yeah, I don't vote for it when they're trying to bankrupt us and when they vote with pedophiles. Okay, cool. I can get behind that. Might have to look into it a little further. Is that actually the case? But at the end of the day, sure, that's a reasonable response for regular people. Why aren't you a Democrat? Because this is what the Democrats are. There's an echo feedback here, which even makes me laugh more. Tim Walz did an address to his people. And this is where I want to get with some of the crazy stuff that's going on with the shooting. There was another shooting last night, an ICE shooting. A guy got shot in the leg. They immediately released a video from inside the man's apartment. And of course, the story is not what the mainstream media does. The mainstream media was kind of like lightly covering it. They went and talked to people who were protesting and making up stories without validating any of it. It's like, you're a person on the street. Do you have some thoughts? And they're like, yeah, here's some retarded things I think. And they're like, cool. Any more retarded things? And they're like, yep, a few more retarded things. Actually, let me play you the retarded things first. And then we'll get to Tim Walz, who's not turning down the volume. He's not saying, hey, man, why don't we just take a breather here and see what... No, we're gonna use the words invasion. We're going to use the word like conquering. We're going to use Civil War type rhetoric, occupation. We're going to get people as amped up as possible against the government that they are paying for out of their paychecks, which these Democrats vote for more taxes each time. That's the best part of it. Okay, so here's CNN. The story goes is that this ICE agent was involved in a pursuit of an illegal alien, a targeted operation. The person fled, made it back to the apartment where he was ambushed by two others. And so the agent was facing down three people, one armed with a shovel, and he shot one in the leg. Now let's ask a retarded lady who's kind of pretty. What do you think is going on, lady who doesn't know anything?
Well, from my house, where I live in my apartment, they come in without warrants, without official anything. They just come in and barge into people's houses, armed up with no one being spoke to or anything, masked up. This is kidnapping and everything above. That is not okay.
What does it feel like, when you wake up in the morning? Are you scared? Are you anxious?
I am very scared. I'm worried that I'm not even able to go to school and feel safe. And just walking outside my building or even walking outside my front door before heading outside the building is very scary. Like, I can't go to school without feeling worried that I'm going to be taken at any moment in any second in my life.
What kind of impact do you think that you can make as an individual here?
To be honest, I'm not sure, but speaking up to the people who cannot speak up and showing that I'm not supporting what's going on right now.
Okay.
Great. Great answers. I'm so scared that I'm just saying this thing that I have preconceived. I'm so scared that I just am unable, but I just keep going to school and I'm just doing it. I was so scared of the illegal things that I believe are happening in my belief system that makes me worried about what's happening. And so that's why I showed up outside here and now I'm standing here. And that's why I'm putting my face on the news to make sure I let people know how scared I am of the things that are so scary. And it's not legal. It's not the right thing to do. They're just doing these things. I don't have any evidence. I just talk. And then there's these great pictures. It's hard to actually get really good pictures from the news. They don't show any of the violent or angry or crazy protesters. They do have some really cool tactical pictures. These are like recruiting photos for ICE. If you guys are missing what you're seeing out here, so check us out, KyleSeraphinShow.com. Go to the Spotify thing if you're just listening on Apple or if you're on iHeart. It's freaking cool. Like, look at that. They're in the steam. They're all jocked up with all their gear. They got the lights on. They got the paintball guns with the lights. Kind of fun. Here's another one. The lights are cool. They're backlit. They're like mysteriously there's like two women. You could tell they're 8 inches shorter than everybody else. There's like one really big dude. He's the bruiser. Okay. So we're going to have like a calming effect, right? Like the governor's going to come out and say, hey, everybody, let's take a step back. They're doing legitimate legal enforcement operations. There is a federal government and there is a state government. We are not taking neighbors at random. We are just doing our job, providing security for the community, and they are doing their job. They are going and investigating criminal illegal aliens, and they're getting them out. Is that what he did? No. And not only that, they couldn't even get his audio right, so there's an echo in this. This is what was broadcast on TV. This is not me screwing up the audio, so just tune your ears. There's going to be a background echo of Tim Waltz letting you know about the occupation.
So tonight, let me say once again to Donald Trump and Kristi Noem, and I know it's ended this occupation. That we all have to defend. You've done enough. Justice and humanity. Let me say 4 critical things to the people of Minnesota. 4 things I want you to hear as you watch the news and look out for your neighbors. Trump and Kristi Noem. First, Donald Trump wants this chaos. You've done enough.
That's actually really hard to listen to. So I've done it a few times and I've listened to what he says, but he uses the word occupation, which is really great. He uses the term neighbors, which we now know to translate into comrades, full commie type stuff. And he's talking about, we've got a dude who's in the White House who is not doing what he's allowed to do, even though he's explicitly allowed and required by law. This is what Congress said. Remember, if you put funds to Planned Parenthood previously, and we will sue you to make sure that those funds get there because we need to be able to kill babies. But if we put money towards DHS and we have explicit laws in the books that said that they are meant to go find people that have violated our immigration statutes, that is unacceptable. In fact, we need to get rid of it. And if you do those things, you are actually an occupying, invading army from the feds. So now we're going to get back to states' rights. It's always amazing to me to watch. The left is happy to do states' rights when it suits their purposes. They're more than happy to do federal stuff when federal things are going their way. This is the problem with having no principle. If you think that states' rights are the right answer all the time, and I generally do, I don't really care if you live in communist Minnesota as long as I'm not being taxed and I don't have to pay for it. As long as I'm not paying for your daycare service. Then knock yourself out. Take all the money from all the people that are dumb enough to live in the place that they live. You look at it and you go, okay, fine. They've passed all these policies. These are state policies. I don't want to fund this. I'm leaving. Maybe you're stuck there for various reasons. You're going to get to a point where you make a decision. You go, you know what? Enough is enough. I'm out. You'd be like my buddy Peter Johnson, who's been on this show. We'll probably see him next week sometime. Peter Johnson's like, my business cannot survive in this place. I would like to live here. I have lovely friends and neighbors. I'm from here, but not anymore. Now I'm from somewhere else. 50 different laboratories for freedom. That would be fine. That's not how Democrats post these things. It's not how the left does it. That's why they're called progressives. They progress no matter what. It's like, let's fight at the state level. No. Let's start at the federal level. Let's get everybody to do what we want. And then they're like, nah, that's not constitutional. And by the way, you lost the election. They're like, crap. Okay, let's get all the states on board. The minute that they get back into the White House and they have a majority, they're going to be pushing things at the federal level. I don't care about states' rights. Meanwhile, when I'm there, I'm like, oh, you're in charge of the federal government. Can you please start rolling things back to the states, including federal law enforcement for the most part? There's a few places where you need to be doing federal stuff. Turns out immigration authorities are like explicitly going to fall under the federal statutes. Got it. But like the other stuff, can you just give it back to us, please? Can you please stop messing with like interstate commerce? Anyway, here's the language of invasion. We're not turning down the temperature. We're turning it up. And the boil is going to get wild. And people started stealing guns from federal agents last night. So I got videos of that too.
Imagine if that city or that town was suddenly invaded by thousands of federal agents that do not share the values that you hold dear. Imagine if your daily routines were disrupted. The local cafe that you eat at was shut down because they're scared that their own family might get torn apart. Imagine if schools shut down and suddenly parents got to figure out what to do for daycare.
Okay. Yeah, you have to figure out what to do for daycare. The heck does that have to do with anything? Why are you talking about the federal authorities that actually fit within the federal, the federal framework? Well, it's a federal problem. Why do you get to talk like that? But at least you're getting your people spun up so they do really smart things like steal weapons. These are the people that think that firearms should be banned from civilian ownership. Then they suddenly are willing to cheer when an ICE car or an FBI agent's car gets broken into and now there's like a loose weapon out there. I mean, it's not anything special. For whatever it's worth, guys, stealing an ICE weapon, that's a really good way to like find yourself in a bad spot. Stealing something from the FBI, same thing. Like, what are you doing? But you're not getting anything exceptional. You're not getting select fire weapon systems. You're just getting the same thing that I got in my safe, except mine's better. And I've actually used it, and you've never seen that gun. You don't even know. But they stole a bunch of federal ammo. They broke into some cars last night and they did some wild stuff. And hopefully they go and get these people too. You'd think that people that care about public safety, just at the state level, would be out there trying to stop this. Nope. They're out there encouraging it and they're whipping them up into a frenzy. And so we are going to get more wild stuff happening. And this is even happening in the cold. I'm actually shocked because look how people are dressed. And then they're going to rip this thing out of the back.
Almost there. Oh, wow.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Great stuff there. Guy with face tattoo. I do recognize that you do have a First Amendment right to protest and to make your voice heard and to petition for a redress of grievances. I don't remember where it said you have the right to rip open somebody's safe in the back of their truck and take a rifle. But you do you guys. Like that's what these people are actually encouraging. They're doing it over and over again. And when you start talking about invasions and you start talking about whether or not people have, the same values as you at your cafe, nothing says invasion to me like a elected representative in this country at the federal level who does not even speak my language fluently. I can't remember this guy's name. And I don't really care, to be fair. Like, I don't even want to learn his name because every time I learn it, I immediately forget it because he's forgettable. But the iconic moment of a non-English speaking H-1B type visa holding weirdo telling us that he wants to abolish the one thing that would go and get rid of people that don't belong in this country when he came here. And I'm guessing he came here legally because he's elected. It is a truly wild moment. Yes, it's Sharice Thanadar or whatever this guy. You watch this, you tell me if we're a serious nation at this point, and then again, where does this go? Like, let's say they get all their way. Like, I'm fine with abolishing it as long as they abolish the ATF and some of the other things. Like, let's get rid of all the Fed stuff. Let's do it right now. And let's impeach Kristi Noem too. Like, let's throw that in a second. Watch.
And we must, finally, we must reform ICE. But it looks at this stage, folks, ICE is beyond reform. ICE is totally out of control. And this week, I intend to introduce a bill to abolish ICE. We need to
do the reform of the ICE. We do this because it's out of control. We need to be brought back. What is it? What is ICE supposed to do? What is its function? Immigrations, Custom Enforcement, ICE. It's out of control because it's doing the thing that it's actually meant to do. You want to know who's out of control? People who listen to that kind of dipshit. And I don't know what the audience is or how that guy made it in. I am looking on, I'm living in Texas right now. We're in, I think we're in District 31. I have to double check. It's 31 or 33. We've got options like Valentina Gomez and then names that are unpronounceable Indian names. Abrahamini Guptahara Baba. Like, what the shit are we doing here? Like, I guess it's better than having the boomer crowd that's going to just keep doing the same old, but you want to talk about surrendering your country. I would love it if people who were not over the age of 65 and were not born in India would run for office in the middle of Texas, America. That'd be fine. Reach out to me, please. I will help support your candidacy. I don't need Valentina Gomez, some weirdo who runs around trying to like shoot dummies and does inflammatory nonsense. Like, we're cooked because we have these idiots out there and they're saying that ICE is out of control. We need to reform it to do what? The same thing that it does. Get rid of people that don't belong in this country. You know, we're in a bad spot when Sean Hannity is saying the right thing. Here's a Sean Hannity clip showing who's really out of control.
Troopers, Texas police. Come out of the car. Come out of the car. Come out of the car. Open the window. Yo, he's in proceedings. He's good to go. Let me get my brake. Lower the window.
Watch out behind you. Watch out. Holy. Watch out in front of you. Watch out in front.
Get out of the car. Get out of the car. Got a ramp. Cut it off. Cut it off. Now. Cut it off. Turn off the car. Cut the car. Cut off. Come out of the car. Come out of the car. Come out. Now. Hey.
All right, here with Reaction, ICE Director Todd Lyons. Todd, I mean, if that doesn't educate the public about these ramming incidents, I don't know what else will, on top of what happened. You know, previously, we now have 3 in recent days. Very dangerous now. Do you tie a lot of this danger to the rhetoric of people like Tim Walz, who compares ICE to Gestapo?
The best thing about doing a Sean Hannity clip is you don't have to hear what the guest is going to say because Sean already answered the question for himself. And so you just got that. Again, I can't stand listening to that. But he's not wrong in this case. He's not wrong. Like, yes, there's ramming things. That guy could have been shot too. He clearly made an attempt on these agents. The agent to the left doesn't know if the agent to the right is clear and safe. So once again, the articulation could be that you're trying to protect someone right next to you. How many more people need to get shot from this stuff? Because it's going to happen because they're being empowered to do it. They're being empowered by dummies that say the solution to the problem is we need to reform and abolish ICE to go back and then create ICE to do the same thing that ICE did. If only we could see that there was an example of what they used to do and how they used to do business. By the way, it's the exact same thing. Here's a representative letting us know that they're going to try to impeach Kristi Noem. They don't have the ability to do it now, but they probably will in 2027 if they lose the midterms, if the Republicans lose the midterms. And rather than them saying, hey, we don't want to lose the midterms, we're going to like really crack down on the agenda that we said we were going to do. No, they're going to just come after the quote unquote black pillars and they're going to unleash Dan Bongino to call you a demon savage if you don't agree. By the way, demon savage, what? Here's the articles of impeachment. Let's get started. Let's get this retarded party kicked off.
This morning, I introduced articles of impeachment against Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. I am proud to have the support of almost 70 members of Congress already from all across the country. Secretary Noem has brought her reign of terror to the Chicagoland area, L.A., New Orleans, Charlotte, Durham, and communities north to south to east to west. You'll hear from some of those communities, Minnesota and Portland. She needs to be held accountable for her actions. This is why I introduced 3 articles of impeachment against Secretary Noem. Number 1, obstruction of Congress. Secretary Noem has denied me and other members of Congress oversight of ICE detention facilities. I was denied access to the ICE facility in Broadview despite following Secretary Noem's unlawful 7-day notice requirement. It is our constitutional duty to find out what's happening in these centers where inhumane conditions continue to be reported. Number 2, violation of public trust. Secretary Noem directed DHS agents to arrest people without warrants, use tear gas against citizens, and ignore due process. She claims she's taking murderers and rapists off our streets, but none of the 614 people arrested during Operation Midway Blitz in Chicago have been charged or convicted of murder or rape. Federal agents repelled from Black Hawk helicopters and burst through an apartment in the South Shore of Chicago. That was in my district. They dragged people, U.S. citizens and immigrants alike, out of bed in the middle of the night. Number 3 is self-dealing. Secretary Noem has abused her power for personal benefit. She steered...
That's the only one that actually makes any sense to me. So, okay, fine. So at least you know that Republicans are doing the real serious stuff, right? And by the way, I don't hear Democrats saying, like, let's dismantle pieces of government because they're really dangerous. You would have me cheering. It's like, what do you want to dismantle? You want to get rid of ICE? Okay, fine. Can we get rid of ATF? Oh, that's good too. Let's get rid of that. Especially if you want to have, federal agents have their guns ripped out of the back of their trucks. Let's do it. Let's go. Let's start de-weaponizing government by getting rid of pieces of government. I'll cheer whoever does it. I don't care. Luckily, we have serious defenders of our principles going out and having really serious conversations that need to be had with physicians. We started off talking about Fauci with vaccine exemptions and people's distrust in the system. Do you want to know why it makes me uncomfortable to try to take my kid to a dentist or to a doctor? Because when I click on the Google reviews, it lets me know they celebrate themselves as a female-owned business. I'm not sure why that matters. Either you're capable of being in business or you're not. You don't need to tell me. In fact, the fact that you think it's important, I don't really like that. It's an Asian-owned business. Don't give a shit. Why is that something that's relevant? Oh, you're virtue signaling something gross. And the worst one, which I see on 9 out of the 10 family dentistry places that are in my area, we are an LGBTQ plus friendly business. Well, what you're telling me is that I don't need to frequent your business. It should only be for people that are part of the former agents group, the FAGs. I don't need to be part of your business group because you're interested in a different kind of business than regular people. How about you just say, I'm a physician, I went to this Christian college, and I've got a family, and we want to do the work of what we do. Luckily, we got defenders of our faith, Catholic Josh Hawley. He's making a major difference in America by asking the seriously important questions in the Senate, the upper chamber of our Article 1 legislator. Here they are having a debate that has to be had today.
Do you think that men can get pregnant?
I hesitated there because I wasn't sure where the conversation was going or what the goal was. I mean, I do take care of patients with different identities. I take care of many women. I take care of people with different identities. And so that's where I paused. I think, I wasn't sure where you were going with that.
Well, the goal is just the truth. So can men get pregnant?
Again, the reason I paused there is I'm not really sure what the goal of the question is.
The goal is just to establish a biological reality. You just said a moment ago that science and evidence should control, not politics. Absolutely. So let's just test that proposition. Can men get pregnant?
I take care of people with many identities, but
can men get pregnant?
Many women that can get pregnant. I do take care of people that don't identify as women.
Can men get pregnant?
Again, as I'm saying,
let me just remind you what you testified to a moment ago. Science and evidence should control, not politics. Absolutely. So can men get pregnant? You're a doctor, I think.
Science and evidence should guide medicine.
Do science and evidence tell us that men can get pregnant? Biological men, can they get pregnant?
I also think yes/no questions like this are a political tool. And
no, yes/no questions are about the truth, doctor. Let's not make a mockery of this proceeding. This is about...
The proceeding is a mockery, Senator Hawley. It's a mockery. I can see the smirk on your face where you're like, oh, I'm going to get so many donors out of this. I own the hell out of this lady. I knew she was dumb, and then I proved she was dumb. Winner, me. Donations inbound. Oh, we could put this clip out everywhere. Yeah, we know that men can't get pregnant. Just like women can't marry women. It's not a marriage. It's like super simple stuff. There was some discussion. They were like, that lady, she got shot at her wife. It's like, okay, well, like women don't marry women. That's just a thing that you guys have been saying for the last couple minutes, but it's not real. Nobody really like, how many people have the difference where they look at a same-sex marriage and they don't put it in air quotes in their brain? How many of you unironically are like, yeah, that man's husband, and you're like, we're all like that. You're not married. That's not marriage. Everybody knows what marriage is. Like, just because we have some legal silliness. Men don't marry men. Women don't marry women. Men don't get pregnant. Ladies don't have a prostate exam that they're worried about. Like, it's just not, this is not it. Women don't get testicular cancer. So, yeah, she's a dumb doctor, and she's pointing out something that's really ridiculous, is that you basically have allowed some sort of false reality to taint the thing that should be an honorable profession and somewhere where people should go and be able to give you trust. It's the reason why nobody's getting vaccines. You're like, oh, the doctor is not even clear about basic human mammalian biology and a sexual binary. They can't even figure out simple stuff. Well, that's why we don't trust what you have to say. And so today, we have this really clear line of people between reasonable and non-reasonable. And it looks like this. We have to say that there are differences and words mean something. One of them is educated. And you cannot conflate the word educated with intelligent. We've done shows where we pointed out the numbers of women in the federal government service. They are overwhelmingly the most educated women in the federal service are black women. That's a thing. They have the most number of degrees. They don't tend to perform at the highest level. I have met very few who were super high performers. In fact, the federal government in general is full of people that are lazy and kind of useless. 80% of them could be eliminated tomorrow and you would never actually know. They have jobs for the sake of the jobs. The purpose of the job is to pay them. So we're not going to have this argument. It's like, well, I'm a doctor. It's like, well, I don't give a shit. You're not that bright. You can't handle basic, simple questions. And having Josh Hawley pointed out in front of the dignity of this proceeding, let's not make this undignified. They're already undignified. They already knew that. She went in there with a political position. She got asked to be there by some Democrat that was like, we're going to make some sound bites. Josh Hawley sees, well, I'm going to lure you into this stupid word trap. We're going to do it in front of the Supreme Court. We're utterly unserious. Just proceed as though these things are nonsensical. How about you do the job of not doing a hearing? What budget bill were you trying to pass? What independent funding were you going to pull away from Planned Parenthood so they're not going to pay for abortions with our money in the tune of tens of millions of dollars? Did you do that? Or are you out there the same guy that was saying we need to fund SNAP because a bunch of people are suffering in my community and votes are important, but principles are not? Because I remember Josh Hawley saying we need to get SNAP and the government funded immediately. And if not, we need to have a sort of stopgap bill where we independently fund all of these different welfare programs because people are suffering. People are also stupid. Listen to this lady. This is brilliant stuff because this is what passes for intellectualism in some parts of the left, but not all of them. So I don't want to paint them with a broad brush, but there's plenty of people that think educated equals intelligence. Some of the smartest people I know did not go to college. Some of the smartest people that you know, savants, ridiculously scary, capable people that were enlisted in the military. And you're like, what in the actual hell are you doing here? And they got a high school education. And I'm going to show you that that's going to be the way that this stuff ends up being broken up. How come we haven't removed the collegiate requirement for a lot of these federal agent jobs, like including my old agency? That was one of the things that me and the boys actually recommended as a way to fix FBI. If you want to stop having a politicized FBI, maybe stop going to the pool where a lot of people are already mentally tainted. We said that there should be a certain amount given for experience, the way they do in other federal agencies, where if you have experience as being a law enforcement officer and you have a decade of being an investigator, then you're probably going to come out of being a decade-long detective far, far and away better than the average like law school graduate who's been steeped in leftist retarded ideology. We're not fixing real problems. These people are just trying to raise money as the Titanic goes down. It's really weird. It's like We wanted them to do the actual thing. And that does not make us black pillars or demon savages, and it doesn't make us like the enemy to the agenda, which is where we started off talking with Bobby Sauce's position. This lady kind of sums it up. If you're not a college graduate, you're not as good as her. Everything about this woman is awful. This is another reason. It's like, just stop.
There are so many new things that I'm learning this year. Like, how did I go my whole life not knowing that every single red state is statistically less educated than every single blue state, with Utah being the smartest red state out there. So yay for us. But yeah, I just thought that was a fun fact that every Democratic state statistically shows more college graduates and higher educated people than red states. Am I surprised? Fuck no. Fuck
Charming.
no. I just didn't know that.
You also don't know how taxes work. I'm guessing you don't understand how anything in our economy functions. You don't even know that you can clip on that microphone and you don't have to hold it in front of your face like a tard. It's actually designed to do something. It's called a lavalier mic. You just clip it on. It's fine. You don't need to use your hand. Then you can talk with both hands. Anyway, conflating education and intelligence. It's a dangerous thing. And it becomes a real problem because our society is not driven by the most educated in the world. It's actually driven by the most capable. Theoretically, the meritocracy would do that. This is exactly where that comes and rubber meets the road in the ICE discussion. Oh, you're wondering, hey, can we look this back? We sure can. Listen to this woman. She's a physician's assistant. It's very funny when you get owned by a high school graduate who has like real world experience. You can make decent money. You can make a ton of money being a carpenter and have high school level experience. You could make a ton of money being a plumber, being a mechanic. You could start your own business. You could run a restaurant. You don't need to go to college to do a lot of these things. I think I learned more in high school than I did in college. And apparently this guy learned how to out-debate this physician's assistant, which is pretty funny.
I don't care what they told you. If you guys get in my way, I will arrest you.
Sir, we're just observing. Please calm down.
You can observe all you want.
I am observing. Do you see me in the way? I am bad.
You had anger issues as a kid, didn't you? Were your parents present? You should be ashamed of yourself, man.
He is.
I love my job, thank you.
You love your job?
I can't believe I get paid for this.
Really?
I do this for free.
Really? I
said I love my job.
Physician assistant.
I do it for free. Here she is.
How long did you go to school for that?
Over 7 years.
I went to high school.
She said, I'm a physician's assistant. He goes, how long did you go to school for that? She says, 7 years. And he was like, I went to high school.
I make $200K.
People regard me as someone valuable in society. What about
That's
you?
the problem.
Your expertise? No. Come out and report if you can.
People regard me as someone valuable because I'm a physician's assistant and I studied for 7 years and I make $200K a year. And this dude went to high school and he's making $200K a year with overtime too. You know who has anger issues? People that just kind of like casually walk around. Does that guy look like he's about to like lose his mind? No. And he deals with this crap all the time. It's just funny. It's just funny to watch the emotionality of it because it's really high. I promised you guys this last week. This is ICE. This is ICE under the Obama era. Okay. And this is, I think this is a CNN. Is this CNN? We'll see. It's like a special presentation of a super sad story. You know what they didn't do back during the Obama deportations? They didn't try to shoot the ICE officers or run them over. People just realized that like that's just what the federal government's job is. If you're here illegally, so are you. Then you're here illegally. That's what happens.
Often far from the border, in places like Maple Park, in the president's home state of Illinois.
Illinois, yeah, Obama.
Antonio Arceo and his wife moved to Maple Park from California 5 years ago to raise their 5 children and live near family.
Does anyone think that they play like blues guitar in their house there, this Hispanic family? Me neither.
Then, last February, Antonio told me he received a call that changed everything.
I was working, and about 4 o'clock, I received a call from my wife's own cell phone
but a man was speaking. He asked in English if I knew Roxana Garcia, who's my wife. I said yes. He said, it's the police, Kane County Sheriff. Your wife has been detained for not carrying a license. Can you come pick up your kid?
Roxana had been stopped for speeding and was held overnight in the county jail.
Isn't that funny? He got to stay. Apparently doesn't speak English. This is 2016, end of Obama.
Next morning when I went back, she was no longer there.
She's gone.
I asked the lady there, how come? They told me she was getting out the next day.
Yeah.
She said no. Immigration came this morning and took her away.
How evil, huh? Now they're sad.
Antonio had no idea what the government had done with his wife.
Yeah, well, you know, Antonio was in this country and he didn't belong here. So that's pretty wild. Here's another story. This one is CNN. This is exactly the same time era. Remember, nobody lost their mind about this stuff. This isn't like a new problem. America's had a ton of illegals here since I can remember, since my childhood. And it used to be that people would deal with it. We always had people that were doing enforcement operations for at least the last 20 years. Like, nobody's watching this on my program and going, oh my God, that poor woman. They're like, yeah, you're here illegally and you don't even speak English when you take the phone. You did a Spanish language interview on an American television station. Yeah, adios, bro. This is a special ride-along CNN got to do.
Just before the sun rises in the Windy City, Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents fan out across Chicago to
Why do they all talk like that, by the way? Does anyone know what broadcasting, maybe somebody who's gone to journalism school can tell me. Just before the sun started rising. Like, I don't know why they talk like that.
arrest criminals in the U.S. illegally.
Tac 1, Tac 2, Tac 3.
CNN was granted exclusive access to witness some of those raids.
That's a day with ICE in the sanctuary city of Chicago. They put sanctuary city in air quotes because no sanctuary from the federal government.
We got 3 targets this morning. You know, some of the neighborhoods a little sketchy, so we got to make sure it's not just the target we're looking at, but other people around us.
They want to come out extra early, like right now, because they want to catch these people before they go to work. That's why it starts so early in the morning.
Ready to check? All right, let's roll, guys.
Hey.
A lot of things go through your head. Your adrenaline, blood pressure, of course, goes up when you're getting ready to do something like this.
They said there's more than 300 sanctuary jurisdictions in America. Of course, they're not sanctuaries from the federal government. Again, this is CNN during the Obama era.
All right, that vehicle behind us is off limits.
How many people are involved with this operation particularly right now?
I have a 5-man arrest team here situated in this neighborhood here on the street. You see the stoop going up. I have a couple guys sitting right inside that stoop. This is part of what we do. Keep eyes on somebody and try to be as covert as we can. There we go. Is that him in white?
This may look organized, but in this moment, confusion.
There's always challenges we face when it's dark, somebody looks very similar to an individual.
ICE agents mistakenly arrest the target's brother.
In the process of talking to him in the vehicle, he then said, oh, no, I'm actually so-and-so. Who you're looking for is over here, this other address. He led us to that address, and we were able to actually arrest the individual we were looking for.
Did you hear that? CNN apologized. They made apologist posting saying sometimes things are chaotic and confusing and you might grab the wrong person. And when you do grab the wrong person, then you correct it. What do? They took the wrong guy into custody. They cuffed him. You saw it. They put him in the car. He was like, oh, that's not me. My brother is the guy. And then he turned on his brother and they told him where to go. And then they went and they got the brother. That's pretty rational. That seems really like CNN actually had nothing against the administration. So they were just saying, yeah, this is what happens. You're on the wrong side of the coin. You look like the guy that we're looking for. We had probable cause to believe. We didn't know you were the guy. Just had probable cause to believe you were the guy. You were coming out of the place we expected you to be, where the guy was supposed to be. So we came to go get you. Interesting, right? Isn't that an interesting framing compared to the way that you're hearing this stuff go down?
Imagine if that city or that town was suddenly invaded by thousands of federal agents that do not share the values that you hold dear. Imagine if your daily routines were disrupted. The local cafe that you eat at was shut down because they're scared that their own family might get torn apart. Imagine if schools shut down and suddenly parents got to figure out what to do for daycare.
Imagine. Yeah, it turns out you didn't have those same concerns just a few minutes ago. And some of us remember it, that's all. I'm just saying we remember it. And if you're going to be consistent, which we are, we're going to call you out on it. And rather than turn up the rhetoric, why don't you try to keep people from losing their minds and getting really dangerous and getting pepperballed? Why don't you keep people from going out and stealing guns and doing dangerous stuff? Or let's just see what happens next. This is all Civil War type rhetoric. I just don't know where it actually goes because, again, it's chilly. That's not usually how things kick off. But people seem like they are looking for any reason to get riled up. Luckily, there's plenty of communists that have the solution for you. You're probably wondering, what does a 50-year-old Canadian woman think about this? This woman is all over the feed. She's being invited on CNN panels. She's not born in America. So just like the guy that couldn't speak English from India, this is a Canadian. We like Canada as long as they kind of do the thing they're supposed to do, which is shut their mouths and apologize when they need to. This is politics girl. Also, when you're in your 50s or your late 40s and you call yourself girl, ugh, gross, weird. I find that like actually the most offensive thing. She's got a solution. Just blame the real problem. Tell me it doesn't sound like a communist to say that the real problem are billionaires. Like this might as well be Bernie Sanders. Why are we importing these people into our country for whatever it's worth? Like, do we really need this in America? Just saying.
So the Epstein class, the billionaires, are destroying the planet. They're upsetting the world order. They're stealing our healthcare and our farming and our housing and our water and any real ability for young people to grow wealth or own anything. They have bought the police, the media, the military. They've corrupted our courts and bought our politicians and destroyed our justice system and rule of law. And they now have an enforcement army beating and kidnapping people in our streets so they can fill giant for-profit concentration camps.
That sounds really dystopian. So the answer should be way less government, right? The answer should be that we should have less of all these problems. This woman is really disingenuous, by the way. She just did what I would call conclusory allegations. She concluded that the thing that she was alleging was already true, and therefore that's the basis of it. This is pretty inflammatory stuff for someone who's not from my country. It's no Mexican. Anyway, let's hear more about these concentration camps and the reasons that we should dismantle pieces of government, because I'm for it.
And they're doing all of this while threatening World War III to distract us from a cabal of their friends who have raped and tortured and murdered children. So tell me, why are we fighting each other?
Yes.
When we so obviously should be fighting them?
The government. Right? All right. I'm behind that. Maybe we can get there. Maybe we can get to that weird point where because I don't think that politics is a spectrum of left and right. I actually think it's a circle. I think at the top is like sort of like totalitarianism. At the bottom is total anarchy. And so maybe we can get them to like they're ramping up. They're like getting enough speed to end up in the we shouldn't have government sort of space. We're almost there in some ways, right? We're getting closer and closer to it. And maybe what we just need are some angry Black Panthers, maybe some 70s style wild stuff. Give you a last little taste of like where this goes when you let dumb people have the biggest say. People who think that owning a semi-automatic shotgun is a flex. And living in a place where that actually is a flex because you're in Philadelphia and the law there is scared of you instead of it actually doing its job.
No ICE agent ever run up on me. I guarantee you they won't. I'll put a hole in their chest the size of a window. Safe line repair, safe line replace. That's what's going to happen. They touch me. Unarmed woman was killed by ICE. If you think you're about to come and brutalize the people while we're standing here, fuck around and find out. Our interactions with the police and ICE, and we hold them accountable. We hold them accountable. We patrol the community and we hold them accountable. The Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, we're the same Panther Party from back in the day, but we're a little more aggressive now, you dig? Carry bigger guns and we don't take no shit. Places where there are a lot of immigrants at, I think that the community around them needs to take special care to them and it needs to start escorting them to and from everywhere to make sure that they're safe. Because them ICE agents ain't going to act like that if it's a bunch of people standing outside with assault rifles and shotguns. It's a semi-automatic shotgun. That means them shotgun shells that shoot out of a pump, they shoot them rapidly. If you are going to legally arm yourself with something bigger than what they got. Those who serve in the public, they should be fearful of the public. They should be fearful that the public's going to be dissatisfied with their job that they're doing, not feeling like they're tyrants, not feeling like they're bullies because they got guns and body armor and walkie-talkies. That makes them immune to whatever the people would do. I think you want to correct the ideology of the pig and the mentality of the slave catcher. You meet them with equal force. All power to the motherfucking people.
No power to the pig.
No power to the pigs. Let's get that one going. Again, this is sovereign citizen type rhetoric. This is the revolutionary end. It seems kind of dumb, but like if that's where it's going to go, if that's where Philly is going to go and take it, all right, let's see. Let's see what that looks like. It's actually kind of worse than that because in addition to stealing rifles and in addition to stealing ammunition and some of the other tactical gear that came out of the back, comms and radios and stuff like that of the either FBI or ICE cars that were raided in Minneapolis, there's actually a kind of a darker end of it, which is that people inside the federal government, remember when I said you had two choices when you try to take back a federal government? You can exile or execute the people that are there. I'm not recommending like actual execution, but obviously the termination of their positions. If you don't reclaim the group and then drastically downsize government, goes back to the original thing I started with. I think it's the worst solution. I think government is terrible. It almost always ends up terrible. Guess what? It's going to be full of people that are in fact terrible, and they feel justified by all this rage bait they've seen. They think they're one of the good guys. They're the hero. So you have a quote unquote whistleblower actually breaking, at least their policies and probably law by leaking the names of a bunch of people. This is one of the more troubling stories that's come out of the last probably 48 hours.
Breaking news. ICE just lost the one thing it depends on the most: secrecy. In the aftermath of the killing of Renee Nicole Good by an ICE agent in Minneapolis, Minnesota, a DHS whistleblower has reportedly leaked personal details of around 4,500 ICE agents, ICE and Border Patrol agents, in the largest known exposure of DHS staff ever. We are talking names, emails, phone numbers, positions and roles, resume history. Nearly 2,000 frontline enforcement agents, the same ones conducting raids, arrests, and deportations, are all now allegedly identified. This data was reportedly given to ICE List, a volunteer-run accountability project tracking immigration enforcement. Their founder says...
Again, I don't get it. Like, again, it should be actually public. It's like, I'm not real crazy about them having to wear masks. The fact that you people are nuts enough that you think that you should go after federal agents for showing their face. Remember, under the Obama era, we just showed you video. None of those guys had masks on their face. They didn't need to be because they were just doing the damn job that they have. If you start targeting federal agents, though, that's going to get real weird. It's going to get weird real fast because I'll tell you one thing that every single agency takes really seriously is the security and the safety of the people that actually work there. That's generally speaking a pretty good way to get yourself on the wrong side of things. So that will be a real FAFO moment. I don't, generally speaking, think that's great. I don't want to go out there and encourage, federal violence. I don't want to do that, but I also don't like that we're living in a world where that is the necessary thing. You have to wear a mask to hide. It's because people are being unreasonable, and they weren't unreasonable about the exact same authorities when their team was in charge. This is the danger of tribal politics. It continues to be. I've got two more little clips that we're going to do, and then I'll do something that's kind of funny, maybe reframe stuff. I'm also seeing so many of these edited videos. The other day, we showed you the one from the Target where the kid got beat up. He's a 17-year-old, and it's like he's all bloody and he's crying and stuff like that. And we showed you like he bumped and took a swing, looked like at a federal agent. And it's like, okay, well, the other end of that is you get your ass kicked. Chris Rock explained this in the 90s. Maybe you need to go back to the OG thing. Watch this kid. He does this sobbing video. It's a lot of emotion. What they don't explain is how in the hell did this kid's shirt get so ripped up if he was just non-violently, peacefully standing in a corner watching his dad get arrested? The visual here is really critical because his shirt is shredded because he clearly was fighting. I don't know if you guys have ever been in a fight where a shirt gets ripped, but this is what happens. So we're missing some of the really critical information, and all it's being done is like used to amp up the politics lady, the people that are so educated, but they're not intelligent because they have no discretion or discernment as they listen to it.
I was choking. The agent just pulls me in. He just puts me in a chokehold. I couldn't breathe. I told him I was a U.S. citizen, that I was 16. My name is Arnoldo Asan. Me and my dad were abused by federal agents. We were choked, we were kicked.
I was going to school.
We were driving to McDonald's, having a normal morning until a car stopped us.
They started hitting us hard 3 times.
They started like trying to break our windows. They pointed the gun at us. I remember that I was just standing in the corner, seeing how my dad was getting like kicked and everything. Honestly, I feel like I was about to pass out. I feel like I was seeing the light. They told me that we were like criminals and stuff. They took my phone with them and they ended up selling it in a machine. I was thinking about what's gonna happen to my dad. He was deported. Every day I just think of him. I wanna be just like my dad. He's my role model. Like, I hope God keeps him safe wherever he is. But you gotta realize.
That's a hell of a claim. My dad is my role model. He broke into another country. You could be just like your dad. If he's your role model, you also can go to a country. You're an American citizen? Awesome. Go to Mexico, go to Guatemala, go to El Salvador, wherever the hell he's from. You can break into that country and be part of it. You don't even have to ask. It's amazing. I recommend that. I also know that you weren't just sitting there having a gun pointed in your face and nothing happened and your shirt just got ripped because people were. Did he say that they sold his phone, by the way? I heard that and he was like, they showed a machine where like you can sell. Is he claiming that the ICE agent sold his phone? This propaganda stuff is getting people really whipped up, though, because you listen, that's an emotional music. It's a retarded kid saying dumb things that if you don't consider it, you go like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. Why does he look like that? And how come he can't just leave? He's being choked, but no one's got any hands on him. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Dude, they're holding your hands behind your back. You're fine. You know how I know you can breathe, by the way? I was a paramedic. I'm like an actual expert on this. You can breathe because you're talking. My wife and I got into an argument one time while we were doing a 5K run. I think it was the first and only 5K run. By the way, she did awesome. She ran perfectly. Better than many of you. She hit her pace within about 5 seconds every single quarter mile, which was awesome. But towards the end of it, she was getting hypoxic and she was pretty frustrated with me because I was encouraging her. I'm like a cheerleader and we're jogging and we're not going very fast, but she's kicking butt on the run. And she's like, I can't breathe. And she's like yelling at me. And I'm like, yeah, I know you can breathe because you're talking to me. And she's like, ugh. She's even more mad. She runs through the finish line. She does a great job. Anyway, we didn't do another one. We might do one this year one day. One day we'll do another run. But if you're talking, you can breathe. It's actually an age-old rule in medicine, in emergency medicine. You don't have to go up to the screamers first. They have a patent airway. We know that your airway is open because I can hear you using it. Same thing with babies. If you're a emergency medical person and you come into a scene and it's a baby scene, and the baby is screaming, that's the best sign in the world. A screaming baby is like music to my ears because a screaming baby is a breathing baby. And a bitching teenager is a breathing teenager. That's a fact. That is non-negotiable. All right. I got one more here for you. This is another, like, again, these are all kind of pretty ladies. They would be pretty, except for the nose ring and the bad ideas. And what do they got to say? They're saying things that are true. You just don't like the way that it works. This woman says, they said, stop obstructing us. That's why that bitch lesbian got killed. I'm directly quoting her, and you're going to hear her say it. It's like, well, you don't have to like the way he phrased it. That's a little bit rough. I agree, but it actually is factually inaccurate. I mean, it's factually accurate. What, are you questioning the veracity of the statement? If you were not obstructing ICE, then you wouldn't find yourself on the wrong side of an ICE gun. I promise you that's true. 100%. Just like if you weren't fighting with ICE, your shirt wouldn't get ripped and you wouldn't find yourself like not breathing or whatever it is while you're claiming you can't breathe.
Also on that same ride, one of the agents said that you guys got to stop obstructing us. That's why that lesbian bitch is dead. Hi, everybody. My name is Patty O'Keefe. On Sunday, this past Sunday, January 11th, myself and my good friend, Brandon Seguenza, were violently arrested and detained by ICE. During that encounter, we had an ICE agent spray pepper spray into our windshield vent. They then broke our windows, dragged us out of our vehicles, handcuffed us, and put us in separate cars. On the way over to the Whipple Detention Center, I was taunted, mocked. I was called ugly.
Now I know why you're mad. You didn't like being called ugly. That's fair. Nobody likes being called ugly. It doesn't make you feel good. Why is everything that you say a question as you say things that seem like they should be? Declarative statements. I don't understand how everyone can take you at your word when things that you say have an uptick at the end. The inflection goes upward as though you are insinuating there's a question mark in your sentences that are declarative. It's very weird. This affectation is my least favorite version of the English language. If you go back and listen, by the way, for all the different years that people have been on recordings on television, there's really funny different ways that people talk. If you go back and listen to the 50s and they're like, see here now, this is the way it's going to be. Like, you got to come here, you got to do this thing. And so you hear that. And then you hear people in the 70s, they have this like little lilt. It's kind of amusing. The 80s, it was starting to go away. The 90s, it sounds kind of okay. And now we're getting to this thing where everybody, even men, they finish their declarative statements with like this. Kash Patel does it too. I don't know why. It seems like we could really easily identify who the people are that are captured by leftist ideology. By listening to the way that they speak and listening to the way that they deliver declarative, straightforward, what should be otherwise factual statements. And we call it uptalk, but it's not really uptalk, is it? There should be a better name for it. I don't think vocal fry is the right name either. I'd like to figure that out too. There are plenty of men that are doing it. And every time I hear it, I go, I don't trust you because you also don't believe you. The things that you just said are decidedly unbelievable and your body betrayed you. It went up. And that's the question. All right, we should do something funny and laugh because everything is kind of dumb. I'm going to have you turn, again, we started off talking about if you can't question the administration that you voted for, then you are in a bad spot. That makes you a tribal, sycophant, a MAGA cheerleader, or whatever those things are. Don't be that thing. Be someone who can be a critical thinker. There are things that are good. There are things that are bad. Giving money to Planned Parenthood, not great. Doing arrests of people and getting them out of this country has been going on for a long time. It is the function. It's what's required. So we're okay with all those things. So let's think about things critically. I love when someone turns something on their head. I've seen these like the accurate trailers where they talked about how maybe the Karate Kid and Daniel-san was actually the bad guy. And then you watch it again and you're like, oh my God, my whole childhood was a lie. Daniel-san was the bad guy. What an a-hole. He came in from somewhere. He acted like he belonged there. He tried to steal the dude's girlfriend. He got into fights. He got like his super karate master buddy to like kick the crap out of these kids. What the hell, man? What's wrong with Daniel-san? What a jerk. So I'm on board that Daniel Russo was the bad guy in the Karate Kid series. And this one may flip another thing that's really important on your head. So we'll do that in just 1 second. While I remind you, make sure you guys are liking the videos wherever you're seeing them. Rumble, YouTube, X. I don't know why we like on X. We never get any distribution there. But come to the monetized channels. Share it on Spotify, which is KyleSeraphinShow.com, or you can go to Spotify and search for The Kyle Seraphin Show. Subscribe to those things so you guys get access to them. Join us on YouTube if you're on Rumble and you don't have a YouTube subscription to. Just back it up. I don't know what's coming, but when one of the major owners of the platform is calling you a demon savage and a black pillar, it can't be good, right? Okay, so that's my encouraging and my request on that. Let me go ahead and pull this palate cleanse of the day, something to kind of clean things off and to make us evaluate things critically. Go in here. This guy's got a nice voice too. He has the opposite of whatever vocal fry is. He's got, I don't know, he's got the like 70s soul voice. So check this out and consider where the Ninja Turtles was the premise all a lie.
Shit's getting weird. Part infinite. I would like to make a formal apology to Shredder. Shredder, I'm sorry. I heard some news today that has shooken my world. Apparently, this guy made a video online talking about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and how they were reptilians underground eating pizza. And the pizza part is significant because the code word for pizza is pedophiles. So the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were actually pedophiles eating pizza underground because they were reptilians. And Shredder was trying to take them down. And the reason Shredder could never take them down is because the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles had this heifer, the mainstream media, on their side to control the narrative and push the propaganda. Shredder, we're sorry, buddy. Now don't get me wrong, you was moving a little wild, but maybe you were trying to protect us. Maybe you were the good guy.
Got to think about that one for a little bit. It's troubling. That's a troubling reframe. What if April O'Neil was covering up for pedophile? He called them reptilians. I would call them amphibians. They were turtles in a half shell, were they not? All right, it's Thursday, so we do Turtle Talk on Thursday sometimes, just so you guys know. If you haven't joined us for our call-in show, you can join us over on locals at KyleSeraphin.com. Be part of that. You can call in. If you want to be a member of the channel over on YouTube, you can do the same thing. If you are a subscriber on X, you will get the number as well, and we'll just chat about whatever it is that you guys are interested in. We do that at 8 o'clock Eastern time, which is 7 o'clock my time. I almost always forget because we only do it one day a week, but this is one of our fun little moments where we get to find out what you guys are thinking about. So if you agree or you disagree, you got some tribal problems, if you're mad at something I said this week, this is your time to go out and get it out. We'll take the phone calls. Look forward to doing that. I hope all of you have a fantastic Thursday. Tomorrow is Friendly Friday, and I'm going to queue up one of the scariest things the Trump administration is doing, which is that they did a search warrant of journalists in what looks like violations of pretty well-established Supreme Court precedent. I don't think you're allowed to go after people just because they have classified information if they didn't actually steal it. So we're going to do the nuance of leaking ICE information versus what happens if somebody brings you information and you want to publish it, a la journalism. That used to be a thing that was protected, and it's been protected in this country for like the last almost like 50 years. So we'll go into that kind of nuance tomorrow with Steve Friend. And don't forget the American Radicals podcast, which goes on at noon Eastern time. Check them out. It's on YouTube. It's on Rumble. It's on X. It's at AmRadPod or the American Radicals podcast on YouTube. All right. We'll see you guys again tonight or tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.